The federal government has grown, and it's worrisome that they are beginning to infringe on just our basic freedoms, whether it be the religious issue with the Catholic Church. We have an appropriations defense bill that passed that has some troubling issues in it. We have President Obama with an executive order just a couple of weeks ago where he will declare emergency even in peacetime, which would muster up martial law. I'm interested in getting a perspective on this, what you could do, what you would want to do, and whether or not you would support some of these bills, including the Patriot Act and the the latest defense appropriation bill. And do we go to Bill? Are you up next? Bill, what do you think?
That's a loaded question, Bill, but I would go back to my principle, the Kane principle. Is it constitutional? Is it affordable? Is it necessary? And is it ethical? If it does not meet all four, it will not get Bill Randall's support. And the health care bill failed all four. With respect to the chief executive taking action, military action, without the consent of Congress, I lay the blame at the feet of Congress for not exercising its authority in that situation. Authority is useless unless it is used. We need to buck up. We need to get people with conviction and spine to stand up, cite, paragraph, and what have you of where it's in violation, and hold individuals accountable. That means with your colleagues on the floor of the House, as well as the chief executive, and even if the judiciary gets wayward, there's the impeachment process for that as well.
You know, we have to keep the citizenry safe. You know, national security is important, but we never must abridge the freedoms and rights that we have. You know, I investigated for a number of years a terrorist cell just down the road in Johnston County, and I can tell you that we used every form of surveillance, from wiretaps to confidential informants to computer searches that you can possibly use. And some of it, the FISA warrants we used, made possible by the Patriot Act. But I will tell you that everything that we did and everything that's authorized under the Patriot Act, you got to go to a federal judge, you got to get them to sign a warrant. And that is a guarantee that our rights will not be abridged. And I can tell you, sorry, I'm out of time.
Mr. Cole.
I stood at ground zero about a week after the attacks, 9/11, and saw the devastation that occurred. And I never want to see that again on American soil. So obviously we have some concerns about our safety, and there are measures that have to be taken to protect ourselves. But in doing so, we don't want to overreach. And that's one of the things that I worry about with the Patriot Act. Have we gone too far? Have we extended it too far? And I think we have to go back and review that to make sure that we are dealing only with those that we need to deal with, and we're not infringing upon the rights of private citizens. And I would also suggest that instead of renewing it for 3 years at a time, that we do that on a much shorter time frame so that we can have a continued opportunity to review how those programs are working.
I received the best email today. Bob and Jean were running for president of the 6th grade. And Bob got up there and told them about his volunteer service and all the great things he did and all the wonderful things he wanted to bring to the 6th grade. Goes on, great speech, fantastic. Jean gets up there and says one thing. She says, "I'm going to give every single one of you free ice cream." Jean won in a landslide. How do you propose telling the people who want free ice cream that it's in their best interest to vote for you? Mr. Alden.
You know, the American people are ready for straight answers. You remember when President Bush got reelected and he went out and he talked about Social Security reform and it was an absolute dud, nobody wanted to listen to it? Well, Americans are waking up. You know, they know that we cannot continue on this path towards bankruptcy. They know the day of reckoning is here, and they want their elected representatives to come up with real answers. And they understand that it involves cuts. I mean, they see what's going on in Europe, they see what's going on in Greece, and they're fearful about what's going to come here. They're ready for people to give them the truth, no matter how We need to protect the promises that we've made to our seniors. We need to protect the promises that our seniors rely on. And the only way we can do that is reform entitlements. And people are ready for that now. They may not have been ready for it 6 years ago, but they're ready for some answers now.
Carmen, in essence, President Obama announced that 47 million people are getting free ice cream. And he called that a success. I think it's a huge failure when we have that many people who are receiving benefits and not engaged in the economy of the United States. We have a problem. Because too much ice cream, just like too many people taking benefits, eventually is going to become a problem. We need to find a way to get people back into the economy. We need to get them back working, face the realities of what's going to happen in this country if we don't bring our spending to a halt.
I remember a commercial years ago, and I would use it as a parallel. I would use an egg and say, "This is your life." The skillet, "This is your life," depended upon Obama handouts, and have it sizzle in front of them. Any questions? I grew up in the inner city, and I saw what the handout mentality, the welfare mentality did to families and devastated them. It is time that we tell people what needs to be done and that they need to get control of their lives and get it out of the hands of the government. There was a time we had free health care and free housing for blacks, and that was slavery. And we don't want that.
Mr. Cole, I bought some gas last year. It's got about 5 gallons. It's my investment because of the price of gas. It's gone crazy. We're the only country, I think, on the planet that doesn't harvest our own natural resources, and that's a fact. So this might be a question you can't answer. It's two-part. What's wrong with us, and what can you do if you get to Washington to fix that?
Well, first of all, the Obama energy policy is a threat to our freedom. We absolutely have to change the way we're doing things in this country. We have pulled away from drilling, we've pulled away from refineries, and we are placing our hopes on technologies that are unproven. It is time for us to go back and decide that we're going to spend our time and our efforts using those energies that are the most productive and will bring success to this country. I have not seen a major freighter out on the ocean being run by solar panels or a windmill. We need to start drilling. We need to drill offshore. We need to get Obama to tell the truth and start opening up permits in the Gulf. Anywhere that we can do it, we need to do it. We need to get the pipelines opened up. We need to drill in Anwar. We're sitting on enough natural gas in this country to be the Saudi Arabia of the world for natural gas. And yet we hesitate to drill. Until we do that, we're going to be at the mercy of other people. And we need to get energy dependency here in this country, and we will do it with oil and gas.
I'm an all of the above type person. All of the above, as long as it doesn't need to be propped up by the federal government. And where are our voices of reason challenging individuals who make outlandish statements saying that if we were to drill, it would not have an impact on our prices? Absolute nonsense. We need to articulate what is going on with that. We need to tell people that exploring for all of our resources is something that is not only going to help in the future, it will help us in the near term as well. And if people don't think that investing in the out years is not important, ask them, why do we send our children to college?
Well, how about get rid of the Department of Energy? You know, it was founded in 1970 to reduce our dependency on oil. In 1977, we depended on 40% of our oil supplies from overseas. Now it's 75%. You know, it was created to regulate gas prices. And look at where gas prices are today. You know, the Department of Energy has turned into the world's largest failed venture capital firm. Look at Solyndra. Let's start with getting rid of the Department of Energy.
Just wanted to take a moment and thank God for Bill LeMay, because he's telling me who's next every time he comes back to me. I was reading on the way here an article in the News Observer, and it seems a couple here, right here in Zebulon, North Carolina, were just arrested for ethnic intimidation. And the way this works, this is a true story, it's a white couple with a black neighbor, and they were wearing googly eyes, according to the News Observer. It's exactly what they said. I believe they both traded insults, racial insults to each other. I don't think that I'm really overstepping when I say we have big problems here from a racial standpoint in the United States. What's happening in Florida is, I honestly think is a powder keg. What can you do? Do you see if there's a problem? And if so, how do you bring us back together as not black, white, and Hispanic, but as Americans? How do you bring us back together? Mr. Randall?
I believe you need to do that by challenging the status quo. And I actually got criticized the other day when I held a press conference challenging the notion that we are to allow people to inflame the passions of individuals with this Trayvon Martin situation. I came from the inner city, and I actually recall years when we averaged more than a murder a day. And we have a situation where we're allowing the race baiters, let's call it as it is, to go unchecked, and we're just standing back not wanting to be called names. Yes, we have a problem, but until we rise up and challenge the status quo and call the hypocrisy of not being incensed by the murders that are going on in our cities, we are not going to change things when we allow them to have a pass by trying to put a spotlight on a situation that hasn't even been fully investigated. So we need to actually stand for our convictions and values, not be afraid to speak up, and regardless of your color, hold everyone accountable to the high ideals, because we're all Americans.
There's no room in America for racism and hatred, and we have to call it out wherever we see it. But sometimes calling out racism and hatred is considered politically incorrect. You look at the problem we have in this nation with radicalized Islam. It's a terrible problem, but it's become politically incorrect to call it out and to challenge it and point it out for what it is. So, you know, we all have to stand up and stand together. White, black, Hispanic, Christian, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, whoever you are. You know, call out racism and hatred when you see it and point it out for what it is.
We need communication, and we need the facts. Before we rush off the judgment, before we let professionals from outside the community come in and tell us what we ought to think, we ought to make sure we have all the facts in place, and then have a fair and open discussion. Another thing this points out is, and Bill touched on this briefly, there are a lot of people in this country who are getting murdered, especially in the inner cities. We don't seem to be concerned about them. We pick celebrity cases, and we try to make money off of it, and we try to make news off of it, and we try to become celebrities from it. Until we can start talking about the real problems, public safety and education, until we raise people up out of poverty and put them to work, we will continue to have these kinds of problems.